Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me for another episode on the Ain't Gonna Be No Stupid podcast. I am here for the first time, I'm here with someone that I do not know personally, but I heard great things from my friend Frank. He said, you have to have Julie on your show. So if I may, toss it over to you, Julie, and if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into our stupid stories.
Yes, so we don't really know each other, but we kind of know each other mutually, in a way. So I met Frank after I had a client who needed help with DCFS. So I connected with Frank, and after literally probably calling him like back and forth like 5 times a day, um, he was like, "Hey, you sound like you could, really benefit from like being on a podcast, and let me introduce you to my friend Amy." And I was like, "Oh, sure." It's just so funny because like, we were saying I've never seen him like in
Yeah. Oh,
real
you haven't
life.
seen either.
No.
Wow.
So just on the phone that I've known him. So yeah, so that's how we met, and he's a really great person. So
Yeah.
he really loves what he does, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we really worked so well together. And so
Mm.
basically a little bit about me is that yeah, I went to school for, okay, I've changed a lot.
That's okay.
So
Hey, everybody needs to pivot. That's smart. I think that's smart.
mhm,
So let's hear the
thank
journey.
you.
Yes.
My parents didn't think so. So it
Well, we
helps.
don't really discover it in high school and growing
Mhm.
up. We don't.
Yeah, like when I think back about it, I just turned 28, and I'm like, why did somebody make me do life choices when I was like 20? Like, it's not the best,
And all the
I could do
goals and
now.
all that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. So basically, yeah, I went to school first and foremost I went to school in the inner city, very underfunded, um, very, very rough neighborhood. And, basically like my school was kind of like how you see in movies where like we didn't have enough books and we didn't have enough desks. And like you would go through like the metal detectors, they would they would body scan you, and then they would scan your backpacks and all of that. And
Hmm.
my school was so underfunded that when senior year came, they told me, oh, I know you're supposed to be, applying to colleges, but, that's not really going to happen. So let's teach you how to, apply for a job.
What?
And yes, and mind you, I was very smart, but I was very unchallenged. So I used to cut
Yes.
class all the time
Yes.
because I
Usually
was
it's the
bored.
smartest ones that do because they're
Mhm.
bored. Yes.
Yeah, I was bored. So, I went to community college. I went to Moraine, and that's in like, I want to say Palos
Yep.
Heights.
Yeah, that's where all my students go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I went to Moraine for like 2 years. And then after I got my gen eds out of the way, I decided to do nursing, and then I became a CNA. And that kind of fell into my lap when my grandma got diagnosed with cancer and I took care of her. I realized I was a really good caregiver, so I was like, oh, maybe I should do this, as a
Hmm.
career.
Yeah.
So then after working in like, nursing homes and like, um, honestly, like in the hospital where it's like really underfunded, I was, I really guess too, after a while, you get kind of burned out. And I was like, there's so much mental illness that's going on right now. And I think that, there needs to be more representation,
Hmm.
and there needs to be someone who understands, the Latino culture, who is also Latino and is able to bridge that gap.
Yes.
So, I don't know, like, I know we prayed together in the beginning, but like, I honestly feel like God kind of wrecked what was going on to redirect me to
Yes.
where I am right now.
Yes.
Because when I was in nursing school, there was a mess up on the lady's part, mind you, not my part,
No.
where she forgot to enroll me into my clinical. And she was like, well, I sent you the email. And I was like, no, you didn't. Send it to me right now and I'll get it. And she sent it, of course, to me right now, and I got it right away. And she was like, well, I can't put you in this clinical now because there's no room and it's too late. So this sets you back another year. And I was supposed to graduate that year.
Oh.
And I was livid. I was
Hmm.
so, really upset. I just couldn't believe it. I'm paying so much money. Um, and then I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna let you guys play me for a fool. So
Hmm.
I was like, I'm done. I'm so done. I'm done doing this. I'm going to figure it out, you know, even though my parents were very disappointed.
Mhm.
That was okay. I learned now, like, I did what I had to do. And then I kind of was like in limbo a little bit. You know, I tried to do American Sign Language because that was really interesting. I liked that.
Wow.
I still
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
and
understand the
then,
press conferences when you listen to the
yeah,
press?
yeah, like I'm like, it looks so cool, you know. It's
Yeah, that'd be
very
cool.
hard, but
Yeah.
like it was nice to learn. And then, you know, very interesting though, that I had applied to St. Xavier like 5 times, and each time they had lost my application. Each time.
Wait, that sounds
I
like a
went in
God
person.
diversion.
Yes, I
You
went in
know?
person. I hand delivered it, you know, and they still, you know, lost it.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, you know what? I don't know what I'm gonna do. And during this whole time, you know, I remember in the back of my head, I was like, there's this one school that I passed a long time ago, probably like 3 years ago, and it was Trinity Christian College.
Oh, yes. I have some colleagues that went there. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes.
And so I went there and I applied, and right away they took me, you know, they accepted me. They loved my essay, you know, statement of faith and all of that, which is kind of funny because at the time I was an atheist and I was like,
I know.
I guess, you know. So, but like, I know, like me and you, we've kind of touched base a little bit. During all this time, I was still in that abusive relationship. I was
Yes.
still trying to like get out. I was still trying
Mm,
to like hide. You know, it was so traumatic and it was so
mm.
difficult. But then I learned later when I was in therapy that probably 2 years later, that my abuser actually went to St. Xavier, and I was like,
Whoa.
that was
That
God's
was a total
blueprint.
God intervention. What do they
Yes.
say? Man's rejection is God's intervention or God's protection.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
good.
And I was like, wow, you know, like
Wow.
I know. And then
That is we can hang it up right now. That's a great story.
I was like, wow, you know, like really, you know, I was shocked and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And then, you know, during my time at Trinity, you know, as I was going, I met my phenomenal therapist there when she was going through the graduate program there.
Wow.
And she was an intern when she met me. And literally, like, had I not gone to Trinity and had I not found my faith again, you know, I wouldn't have gotten better. And
Yes.
till this day, she is still my therapist. Like, I've
Wow.
gone through the journey with her where she, like, you know, had to study for her NCE, get licensed, find the job. And I'm like, I followed her through every step of the way. And
Absolutely.
then I applied to the graduate program at Trinity to become a counselor because I was like, I know that everything that happened was very traumatic and, you know, it sucked, but I honestly believe that God put that in my path just to make me one a better counselor and two to help others just like me.
Yep.
And that's why I went to do counseling. So now I went through the same program and graduated, and now I'm studying for my license. And now she's like, this is such a bizarre
This is
situation.
amazing. Yes, I
Mhm,
think we covered all the intros, all the stupid stories.
mhm.
We're going to jump right into our topic. But I have to
Yeah.
tell you, that is a similar story to me. When I was in college, I also reached out to just a nurse who ended up being like a counselor to me. And she was
Mhm,
so amazing and just such a validator and somebody that actually listened to you. Like, for
mhm.
some reason, when you go through those teenage years, it feels like what we do to teenagers is we shut them down, their
Yeah.
voice and I've been a big proponent all my years of teaching, like, your voice matters and you need to say,
Mhm.
but
It does.
they've been so used to being shut down, including when I grew up too. I just think it was just so cathartic to finally talk to somebody, right?
Mhm.
So let's talk
Someone who
about that.
cares.
Yes, I mean, it's like, and that's why, guess how you got to be so empathetic, by the pain you went through.
Mhm.
If we
Yep.
don't go, and that's why I always say no pain is ever wasted, unless of course you
Yeah.
turn it around and you become the evil one. But
Mhm.
your pain is there to refine you and get you just to be more light and salt to the earth, right?
Mhm.
So, oh, I love this. And because of that, I'm going to jump right in. We did title this "Ain't Gonna Forget the Benefits of Therapy."
Yep.
And then definitely want to talk about, there's some 5 points we have
Mhm.
here. And then we want to talk about how we also want to embrace all walks of life too.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll weave that into. Okay. So first of all, a lot of people just think therapy is, there's such a stigma to going to therapy and you shouldn't go to therapy. And there's all this, especially Latino, right? You have the cultural thing. But let me read the couple Bible verses that I thought of here, where Proverbs 11:14, where there is no counsel, the people fall, but in the multitude of counselors, there is safety. And then also Proverbs 15:22. I'm going to read it actually out of the Passion Translation. The senseless fool treats life like a joke, but the one with living understanding makes good choices. Your plans will fall apart right in front of you if you fail to get good advice. But if you first seek out multiple counselors, you'll watch your plans succeed.
Aw, that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
isn't that great? So there, for those that have a stigma and are also maybe in the Christian faith, the stigma comes from the pit of hell. So let's talk about what are some of the stigmas surrounding therapy that, you know?
I think honestly, like, the one first stigma that I think about is that you need to, be quote unquote like crazy to come to therapy. And that's not true. As therapists, like, we want to help you before you hit rock bottom.
Yes.
Even though we'll be there, to pick you up and to walk you through if you do get there. But we would love to see you before that happens,
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with coming to therapy, And the way that I think about it is God made helpers available in different types of professions. So we're here to help you the best that we can to our ability.
Yes.
And I think the stigma of, I really don't think that like media really helps, because you see like those movies, like, Straight Jackets and stuff.
Right.
Oh, not
Electrodes on the brain.
Yeah. And it's like, no, we're nothing like that. And I think people, honestly though, still my clients still get very shy about telling people that they're in therapy. And I always tell them, never be ashamed that what you're going through, because that eventually will help you grow. And I always tell, my minority community too, if you are in therapy and you feel comfortable telling people that you go to therapy, that's wonderful, because you're breaking the stigma. You're showing people that it's okay to come. And that is probably the most phenomenal thing, that can happen, because when you own it, no one can come after you.
Yes.
What are you going to tell me? Oh, you're in therapy because I'm crazy. Yes, I am.
Right, exactly. Well, I was going to circle back to what you said at the beginning, is like, aren't we a little bit crazy and don't we want to own it? To be like a little like, yeah, I'm not normal. But one time I think I got some kind of blood test or something. It was one of those church where they were testing everybody in the van. I don't even remember what the pandemic was at the time. But I just remember them saying, oh, it was like blood pressure. Not blood pressure. It was something else, but it was something they said, I don't even know. But I remember going because it was free. And I was like, okay, I'll get tested. And then it was about 6 years ago. And they go, oh, you're normal. I'm like, no one has ever said that to me in my life. So it was so nice. So like I said, I want to own crazy, because it's, I know it's got a negative connotation, but I like uniqueness versus, why would you want to be normal? Then you'd be average. Then you'd be fitting in. And do you really want to fit in? That kind of.
And there's nothing wrong with being a little bit kooky. We all have our crazy
We all have our issues. And the people
that
think they don't need therapy, I mean, that is crazy. That's crazy. If you think you don't need help, don't you think
I know. Like, I have never met anyone. I always said too, like, anyone can benefit from therapy, just even once, because you get to nurture yourself. And how many times do we sit and nurture ourselves?
That's part 2. You said honor ourselves while in therapy. What does that mean when you say honor ourselves while in therapy?
I think the most important part is, 1, not bending for your therapist. 2, letting your therapist know what you do and don't like, and advocating for yourself. Because
which we haven't never been taught to do. So please teach me now. Let's teach some things we can do.
Right. Yeah. And as women too, we're taught to kind of, minimize that and kind of go with the flow, even though you don't like it.
That is my biggest pet peeve of life.
I know.
Women are conditioned to be nice.
Yes.
And that's what gets us into these abusive relationships to begin with, because we don't have boundaries.
Yep. And, it's just, 1, it's unfortunate, but 2, I'm so open with my clients all the time. I tell them in the first session, if there's something that I am doing that you feel uncomfortable with, please tell me. Like, if you want to say, hey, Julie, I think this is nuts, I'm going to be like, okay, let's toss it out and start over.
Julie, that's
Because,
amazing.
yes, because the therapeutic relationship is the most important part. And I always tell my clients, if we are not working together, then what am I doing? It's just one-sided. Your input is valid and it's important, and we need to honor you because no one has honored you so far in your life.
Oh,
And this is about you right now.
that's beautiful. I love that. You might have a new client. um, Tell us then, number 3, how it helps you grow. How does it, okay, I don't want to go to therapy. That's dumb. That's for crazy people.
Mhm.
How can you counteract that thought?
I think one showing, if you have a good therapist, who was really, you can tell, honestly, as a client myself
Sure.
and as a therapist
Yep.
myself,
Yep.
you can tell when therapists are just stringing you along or
Yes.
want
Yes.
money. And, one that doesn't help, and therapists out there who are doing that, I see you. So,
And I've been
but
to you.
exactly, yeah, I've been to you, so I know what you're doing.
Yes.
But honestly, it's about, you come into session, and sure, every therapist is different. I do more of a power, empowerment model. And
Mm,
I come in and we, you know, focus on not faults, but where you feel that you can grow and benefit. Because, if you're in a situation of one, abuse and or trauma, no one has empowered you right now. And finding within the power within yourself, you can grow phenomenally. And that can be as simple as boundaries, that could be as simple as saying no. That could be as simple as getting up on time in the morning, little things make big phenomenal things, whether you see it now
that's
or
good.
later, and that's okay. And that's the
Yeah.
other thing. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to make progress very slow, because progress
Mm.
is progress.
Yes,
It
it's and
doesn't
then
matter.
I just heard recently perfection is the enemy to progress. So we
Yeah.
don't try anything new. We don't go
hmm
forward because of that. Can we circle a little bit into, I know you have credibility by the way you're talking, but I know you mentioned that you were in an abusive relationship. If you could help
hmm
me with the exit out of that relationship, were you in therapy?
Yeah.
And then you sound like you maybe went through empowerment exercises in
hmm
order to break through free. Could you explain a little bit more of what you did there?
Yeah, so man, it was such a very difficult time, it really
Very.
was. And, even till this day, like I still have like a little bit, not a lot, it's in remission, still working on it. That's all right. You
Well, your
know,
brain chemistry changed as a result of the
yes, your
trauma. So
brain structure
it,
actually
it
changes when
does,
the
it
trauma.
literally does. Yes.
hmm So I do have the PTSD from my abuser still, but you know what? That's okay. I'm working on it. But the exit out was like very, oh my God, it was probably the stuff of like nightmares,
Yep.
honestly. Like
Yep.
I I had no one, believed me first and foremost. Two, the cops weren't on my side because that person was military.
Mm.
Three, even my family turned a blind eye. Like I'll never forget when I, told my sister, hey, my significant other at the time, he's, really physically hurting me. And her response, because she didn't know any better, was, well, Jay, you didn't really, date good men. And when I told my mom, mom, I think I need a restraining order, in the Latino community, we don't call the cops because we don't trust them.
Right.
And she said no. So I was all by myself, and
That's
it was
tough.
really hard. It was. And, it was awful. But even through all of that, I'll never forget the day where I was in the hospital. And the only reason I worked at the hospital so much was because there was security and I knew he wouldn't be able to get in. So I was doing night shifts and I checked my phone, and literally, I want to say there was 120 text messages with my name over and over. And I was just done. And I text back and I said, scared as all heck, because I was like, he's going to kill me. And sure enough, he tried. But I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Next time you come, I will call the cops. I don't care if they believe me. I'm done. And that was the last text I ever sent him. And he ended up stalking me for like 3 or 4 years continuously after that.
Oh,
Yeah. But, it was awful. I was going through undiagnosed PTSD. I was
Mm-hmm.
so reckless with myself.
Mm-hmm.
But it had it not been through God's own intervention and placed me in that right spot with the therapist,
Yes.
the first person that I met who was healthy and actually cared about me, I wouldn't have grown. And in therapy, oh my God, I wrote a thick journal. I still have
You
it.
need to publish it.
Oh, I should though, right? I
Yes.
don't know how to do that.
Why
But
not?
like, I show it to my clients because it shows the post-traumatic growth.
Yes. And then the
I
journaling really, does that change your brain
Yeah,
chemistry?
it
Awesome.
does, because you're sitting with yourself. And one, that's really hard. Because like even now I'm like, I don't know. But like it helps you get that out where
Oh,
nobody can judge you. And my therapist, phenomenal. She, did so much. Like she went to the director of the counseling program, begged him, can I please extend my internship hours? Because Julie wants to get better and I did want to get better. And
yes.
she sewed like hand sewed crafts and weighted pillows for me. And I was in
Weighted
tears.
blankets are very
Yes.
helpful. I have one.
Hmm.
I love it.
Yeah, and she sewed me like four of them, and she's just so amazing. And had it
That's
not been
great.
for her, I would have not found the strength in myself to know that I mattered, what happened was not okay, and that no one else should go through that.
A couple points. Well, people listening, please listen to people when they say they're in an abusive relationship. A lot of
Mhm.
times they'll be duped by the charm of the person, right?
Yes.
Or also, please don't forget to pour
Mhm.
yourself into other people's lives. I think that's going to be healing for our nation in general. Just people in your circle, people out, just a step out of your circle. Really reach out to all walks of life, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know
Check in.
what life you're saving as a result of that. So wow, what a powerful
Yes.
story. So the benefits of coming to counseling, number 4.
Wow, there's so many.
I know.
Um, oh my God. Honestly, I think I see the benefits in, like we said, all walks of life. Because my favorite population to work with is, although I love working with survivors, seniors have always been my favorite.
Oh,
I love them.
that's so
When
great.
I
That's
was
a gift.
CNA
Yeah.
and I was a nurse, I just love my seniors. And if I could just hug them all, like,
Their
oh, let me
wisdom
take
and
care of you.
yes, yes,
They give you so much and they've done so much in this world, and people like glaze over them all the time.
they do.
And I think it's unfortunate. But like, I have clients who are older, and the benefits for them, especially during this time right now, is that they just want someone to talk to. And
Yes.
when I call them, they'll tell me, Julie, I've been looking forward to our call this whole week. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's so great.
And
Yes.
even with young adults, like we do more in counseling than just working through your trauma.
Yeah, tell us.
We do life, like depending on your counselor and your therapist. When I get my young adults and my teenagers, I've already gone through high school, I've already gone through college. So we do a lot of life planning, a lot of career planning too, a lot of how to speak to your parents, how
Mm,
to, make sure, one, you're in a healthy relationship, two, how to steer away from peer pressure. We implement that. I know I do in therapy because, yes, your trauma is important, but also I'm looking out for you as well.
yes.
And everyone, even little kids, when they come and see this, one, is really unfortunate, but two, kids are more aware than the people think they are.
Mhm.
And through play, they learn how to form a trust.
Ooh.
And even with women and young adult women, like they come in very, scattered, and they need someone to just help them pick up the pieces.
Mhm.
So they benefit from just coming, because therapy externally gives you structure. Every Thursday, or depending what day you pick,
Yes.
you look forward to that.
Yeah.
And you structure your day around that therapy session. And
I
for
love
those
that.
who have depression, that's something good, because depression needs structure. Same thing
Oh,
with PTSD. Structure, predictability helps tremendously. So,
amazing. I wasn't aware of that because I think I still have some PTSD brain,
yeah, oh, I do too.
Yeah.
Like, I have
Like
to
when does it? I actually had a life electrodes on my head. Be funny we talked about that. I did go to a brain doctor downtown. It's a neuropsychologist,
Yeah.
chiropractor, and he did
Yeah.
neurofeedback where they stuck electrodes literally on your brain, and you would watch Netflix, and you'd have to keep the light. I don't know what else. He did a bunch of exercises. It really seemed to help get me back, but I
Yeah.
could definitely use more of it, you know, but I'm not, one more appointment stresses me out. So I said, forget that. So I have a final point here that we have. You mentioned how to create boundaries, which I think is really huge. And I don't think a lot of people know how to do it without being like, you this, you that. You can do boundaries, right? With saying the word I, as opposed
Yeah.
to accusatory,
Mhm.
right? Or get
Yeah.
defensive. So
Mhm.
can you explain a little bit, just some of the exercises you do to help create
Yeah.
boundaries?
So sometimes in counseling, and even which is very interesting because women struggle more with setting boundaries because of guilt, but men, in a way, have to restructure their boundaries by not coming off either one aggressive or standoffish.
Okay.
Because sometimes, I do see males too, and they struggle a lot with the way society views them and how they
Yeah.
feel like they don't have space emotionally and
Mhm.
mentally,
Mhm.
for themselves. And
Yes.
that's not true. Please
Yes.
come see us. We're not judging you.
Yes.
We just want to help. And when we create boundaries in therapy, sometimes I do that with my trauma survivors, my teenagers, and with men. We do role playing. And I know sometimes that could be a little awkward. It's only weird if you make it weird.
Right.
So if they want to laugh throughout, when we do this exercise, sure. But I'll sit in one chair and they'll sit in another. And I say, okay, pretend that I'm the person you're struggling to set those boundaries with, whether it be your mom, your partner, or friends who's stepping all over you. You know, I'm going to bring out the worst possible scenario because that's your fear, right? So boom, I'm going to put it on your lap.
So
If
when
you're
you face a fear, the fear of having a boundary is no longer there.
Yes, because you've already faced the worst possible outcome, right?
Yeah,
So now you're like,
exactly.
oh, it wasn't that bad, right? So
Yes.
we'll sit together and I'll be like, okay, say I'm your friend and I want you to come to this party where there's tons of drinking and you don't want to because you don't feel comfortable. And I'm like, all right, let's start the conversation. Hey, I want you to come to this party. And they're like, I don't really feel like, I'm like, you gotta be straightforward. No, I am not comfortable. And they'll, little by little, will practice this over and over till they reach the point where they can say it fully and stick to their guns. And I'm
Love
like,
it. And
that's what.
do you ever switch seats where you're playing them and they play the other person?
Sometimes,
Okay, I
yes.
just wondered
No
if
way.
that worked.
When we start to, even ourselves and people like clients in therapy, when we start to really rip ourselves to pieces, like, man, and I always call it falling into the should have, would have, could haves.
Oh yes, I hate to be should on.
Yes, because I'm like, it doesn't change where we are now.
Right, right.
So when I'll say, okay, you know what, let's flip the switch right now. You're a therapist and I'm you. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, I should have lost weight. I should have ran. I should have done this. Man, I'm just so dumb.
Don't should on yourself.
Right? And then they're
Say
like,
that
wow,
fast
this
3 times.
sounds awful. And I'm like,
Right,
exactly. We're tearing ourselves to pieces.
right. Our
You
inner,
know,
yes.
yes, yes, some forgiveness, like whether
Mm,
you be spiritual or not, like we can all benefit from forgiveness. And if you are spiritual, God forgives us every day,
that's beautiful.
and
Yes,
he loves us.
yes.
Mhm.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I did read a book, but long time ago, Dr. Henry Cloud Townsend, he wrote, and John Townsend wrote the book Boundaries. But it's funny, I've read books on boundaries, and I don't think I got any better because I read a book on boundaries. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm more of a hands-on person and I'm
Yeah, I
very
think you
visual.
have to like role play it and get in
You do.
therapy.
Yeah, because books can only take you so far. I mean, even in school and like, internships and stuff, when
Yep,
you're finally in the field and
yep.
you're finally using those tools, that's where you learn.
Truly, truly,
Mhm.
truly. All right, let me see if I'm gonna, okay, those are our 5 points. If you want to
Mhm.
end it with our rapid fire questions, unless you have
Sure.
anything else to say.
Well, yes. One, first and foremost, if you need therapy, please reach out. Please either search for some free resources. A lot of therapists do sliding scales. Some will see you for free if they're interns. Also, if you have insurance, call your insurance.
Yes.
The other thing to utilize hotlines. They're here for you to help you de-escalate in that situation. Another thing too, that I wanted to bring up really quickly is there is an organization called SAS. So if you're ever in a situation where you're going to harm yourself, and or you're in a situation where someone you know is like, well, I'm going to harm myself, call SAS. Just Google it. They'll come. They'll de-escalate it. It's there. And
Beautiful.
another thing, you know, if you feel like you are in an abusive relationship, please reach out to the domestic violence hotline. You are valid, you are important, and it is something that happens. And whether or not someone believes you, I believe you, the hotline believes you. So please reach out. We care, we love you, and we just want you to get better.
That is beautiful. Thank you. Well, give me those notes and I'll put them in the notes for the
Mhm.
show. Okay.
Sure. Mhm.
All right. Rapid fire questions, and then we'll ask where we can find you and
Sure.
we'll call it a day. Okay. Tell me, if you could live in another decade or era, which decade or era would it be?
Oh my God. Man, okay. 80s going into the 90s. Because I love
I,
80s fashion and I love grunge.
that is,
So
oh my gosh. I grew up high school years from the 80s, and I always say it's got the worst music, the worst fashion, and the worst
it
hair.
is
That's so funny.
fantastic. Acid wash jeans.
That was the worst. I love that you love that. It's great. All right. What's your favorite binge watched show or movie like that?
Oh my goodness. Okay, one, I have a thing with Lord of the Rings because I'm that person. But
Okay.
two, I really like true crime. So any true crime documentary on Netflix, yeah, it's phenomenal.
That's good. That's good. What is your favorite? I mean, sorry, describe yourself as a teenager in 3 words.
Oh my God, angsty, angry, and weird.
I love those kids when I teach them because I
That was
get them.
me. Like the
Oh,
bang in front of the eye,
yeah. The
like I
emo,
wore
did
all
they
black.
say? Emo?
No one understand me. So
Right,
that was
right, right. Oh, that's wild. That's awesome. What a perfect, perfect description for somebody who's now a therapist.
yeah, I know,
Uh,
right?
do you prefer sweets or salty?
Salty, 100%.
Do you have a book that changed your life?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Let me look at my thing right now. Okay, yes. Uh, I want to say one of the books that really I absolutely adore is probably, let me think of it really quick. I know I have it in my head. It's going to sound lame, but I loved The Velveteen Rabbit. I love
Oh,
kids' books because I never had a lot of friends growing up, and all I did was hang out in the library because I learned to read when I was 4. So
oh, wow.
reading it, I loved, just a little rabbit himself, and I'll read it now and then, even now because I feel like it shows compassion and love.
Yes,
And I usually, my friends, when they are expecting babies, I always like give it to them because I'm like, it just shows how much you love something, and the
yes.
rabbit turns into a real rabbit, and it's so
I
cute.
do remember that book. And also, I think that when you give books, um, I think children, you could do a whole university class on it, or high school class could be on just children's book, what we can learn from children's books. That would be
Yeah.
a great unit. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, but also, you said you also, when you were little, you would sleep with a bunch of stuffed animals too, right?
Yes, I did. I have some, I mean, I still do. I think it's a comfort thing.
Yeah, it
But
is.
I had a little rabbit when I was little, and he's all like worn out now. He's missing like an ear,
Oh,
and but
hilarious.
that's why I used to carry him around everywhere.
I know. I think we all, and I have 4 blankets, a weighted blanket, 5 pillows, like
It's
6
about
pillows,
comfort.
and a dog. He's still with me.
Oh, I do too. I have
Yeah,
one.
it's the best, right? Oh my gosh. So let's see. One last question. Do you like to dress up, or do you prefer to hang out in jeans and a t-shirt?
Oh, yeah. If I could like not wear like, well, one, I don't even wear jeans because I like to like have stretchy pants because I like to eat. So
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
want to be comfortable. So if I could go to work as a counselor wearing just leggings and some anime shirt, like I would so do that.
Yes, it's funny because I was going to ask you if you're wearing pants right now.
I'm wearing pajama pants.
I'm wearing like leggings like that I walk
It's
the
all
dog
about comfort.
in. COVID, one thing that's good about COVID, right? We can just wear from here
Exactly.
up and don't worry about the rest. Oh my gosh, that's funny. Julie, it is such a pleasure talking to you, meeting you. I definitely think we need to connect later.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for
I
sure.
really love this. You have a true calling on your life, and I'm
Oh,
loving
thank
how
you.
you're helping people through it. And I hope that we've dispelled the fears around going to therapy and thinking that
Hmm.
it's too expensive or whatever. So we have all those notes, those fees on the notes. But where
Hmm.
can we find you if we do want some therapy?
Um, so, I'll be out there in the field eventually when I get my license. So if you ever, a couple of years from now want to look me up, just my first and last name, Julie, Julie, Villarejo, Villarejo. However, I will say disclaimer, you won't find me on internet social media
No,
because I don't have it, but
that's
also,
fine. They can find me
caution. But
definitely. And
I'll be out there, guys.
you can find Julie through me if you really want to do that.
Yes, that's really
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. That works. Oh my gosh, Julie, thank you so much. And I will soon be talking to you.
Mhm.
Beautiful. I'm going.
Thank you. Oh, and thanks, Frank.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Frank.